Hi, this is Gary Cato with Project SOS, and I'm very proud to sponsor this episode of Salute. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube. I'm your host, Bob Peters, and once again, I'm coming to you from Oklahoma, Florida at Eagles 4273. I have an pleasure of having an Army vet who's going to talk about the United Way and United Way, the mission United, and his name is Tracy Schoonmaker.
Right.
United States Army, Vietnam veteran, and I want to welcome you to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Would you give me a little background about yourself? Where are you from originally?
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York, went to college at Idaho State University in Pocatello, Idaho. Graduated in '69, 27 days later, entered the Army as a second lieutenant, an armor officer. My first duty assignment was to the 3rd Armored Cav Regiment at Fort Lewis, and from there I went to Airborne and Special Forces School, and thence to Vietnam, and spent 24 years on active duty and retired in 1993.
Wow. We're going to slow it down a little bit. When was the first time you went to Vietnam, and what exactly did you do over there?
Well, I was a platoon leader with the 11th Armored Cav Regiment for the first half of my tour. So what I did was took an Armored Cav platoon to the jungle and stayed there until they told us to come back. And then I went to the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which is basically an infantry organization, and then redeployed back to the United States with the 173rd right at the end of my tour. And we eventually became the 3rd Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division. So I spent about a year there and then went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I took over a basic training company for 2 years. Then off to ROTC duty at my alma mater, Idaho State University. Spent 3 years there and then back to the 1st Cav Division at Fort Hood. From there, I went to a Special Forces assignment at the Joint Unconventional Warfare Task Force Atlantic. Did some schools, went to the Special Operations Command Atlantic as the Director of Plans and Operations, and eventually the Special Warfare Center. And then finally to the United States Special Operations Command when it was stood up. Spent 5 years at US SOCOM in McDill, Florida, retired. And then backed into higher education and spent 24 years running college campuses and setting up college campuses internationally. I worked in Brazil, India, Germany, Holland, and Mexico. And finally, when I turned 70, I said, that's enough, I'm retiring. And a year ago, United Way asked me if I would take over this Mission United operation. And what we do is we work with veterans in all sorts of situations, from homeless to food insecurity to navigating the VA system, which, as you know, is a hugely bureaucratic system and can be very difficult for people.
Okay. I thought we were going to talk a little bit more about your experiences in the military, but you get right to the point, don't you? You know, Special Forces, you did a tour in Vietnam. You never went back to another Vietnam or Kosovo or any place?
Grenada.
You've been to Grenada?
Yeah, and a few other places.
Yeah.
The other places don't count.
They don't count?
No.
Oh, they all count. They all count.
They're the ones you don't talk about.
Oh, yeah? Okay. So, but I know you want to talk about the United Way and Mission United. They started that several years ago, and they asked me to come in, and I went in, but I had nothing to offer them as far as that goes, because I don't have a charity. You reach out to the different charities, right?
We work with what we call our funded partners. I mean, we have partners like St. Vincent de Paul Cares. They have a program manager who administers what's called the SSVF funding, which is VA funding to prevent homelessness of veterans and to prevent eviction. So I'll get a call from a veteran and refer them to the program manager over there who I know. Within the United Way, in our Family Stability Services Department, they administer funding to prevent foreclosure, to prevent rental evictions, to assist people that are behind on rent. We receive funding from SECO, for example, through their Angels program. And so we're able to provide funding to people who are behind on their electric bills. There's another program that allows mortgage assistance. So there are several programs within the United Way that I interface with. Generally what happens is I'll get a veteran referred to me either directly, because word of mouth does a lot of that, or they come in through 211. And so once I get their name, I'll contact them and find out what their need is, and then work with them to try to solve the issue. And there, it ranges all over the board. I never know what's going to come through the door or what's going to come in on the phone. I've been working for months now with a couple up in Melrose, Florida. The husband had a major stroke. He's totally bedbound, and she is his caregiver. They live on Social Security. They were living with friends. Car was broken. The typical, really, really bad problem for a veteran. And he wasn't in the VA system, and they really needed assistance. So I contacted the director, actually the CEO of the Gainesville VA hospital. They sent one of their social workers out to their home, filled out the paperwork for what's called aid in attendance, which will provide them funding and other assistance to assist them. And that's kind of a thing, the kind of thing that I get involved with. So it really varies. I mean, it can be, I get calls from veterans seeking employment. If I know anybody that's hiring, for example, they get stuck in the VA system because of some bureaucratic thing that gets in the way. I just worked with a veteran in Leesburg who actually was a VA employee, and was a veteran and was having difficulty getting out on what they call community care, which is a program that the VA had to take on about 4 or 5 years ago. Requirements are basically if you live more than 40 miles away from the hospital, Lake Nona, and or your appointment is going to be longer than 30 days, you're eligible for community care. And what that means is that veteran can go out to a civilian doctor. Now, the VA will arrange all of that and set up the appointment, and it's a really effective system. It works, but you have to know about it. And if you don't know to ask, just like many things within the VA system, then it doesn't necessarily happen. So you've got to understand the system. You've got to understand what the benefits are. Many veterans are confused about the disability compensation system. They don't know what the process is to be involved in that system, and it's hard for them to sort it out because you go online, everybody always says Google this, Google that. Try Googling the VA disability compensation system and figuring that one out. Good luck. So
not everybody Googles either, so
well, that's true, and I get those calls.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. You deal with the veterans part of it, but other people they have, the United Way has a lot of resources to help them.
That's
because I know I've had people tell me, they've had a situation. I tell them to call 211. The United Way, and I know the United Way does some really good stuff. And what about what would you say is going on with the homeless situation? I look around here in this area. Don't see a lot of housing for homeless or anything.
There is not a single homeless shelter in all of Lake County.
What do we got to do to straighten that out?
It's a funding problem. I mean, really. I mean, the VA doesn't even have a homeless shelter in Lake County. The nearest one is Orlando. Now, St. Vincent de Paul, the SSVF funding manager to prevent veterans homelessness, can do things with veterans in the county, but as far as a shelter, doesn't exist. So, it's a funding problem, and I'm sure there are agencies that would be interested in taking that on. It's easier for the feds, I think, in reality, to provide funding for specific cases as opposed to operating a shelter. Because if you think about it, full-time management, repairs, maintenance, all the rest of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we receive, a good example is Family Stability Services works with everyone. Don't have to be a veteran. In fact, they primarily work with everybody else. They receive funding periodically from the county, from the feds, from various sources, and that's what keeps those programs alive and keeps them moving. So it's difficult. I mean, it's tough out there. People get behind, especially during the coronavirus. I worked the CARES funding program in conjunction with the county, and we worked that from August to December because the county had a couple of $1 million to disperse. Actually, I think the total amount was $15 million. Don't quote me, I could be wrong. We had to qualify people, we had to, see what their need was, and it ended up being folks could get up to $4,000 to apply against rent and mortgage under that first stimulus package that came around. Mm-hmm. So, and then it also included utilities. So, I mean, there was a lot of help provided from the federal government. I also run, and I want to put a plug in for the VITA tax-free program, and I administer that program for United Way, and that's open to anybody regardless of income. They can walk in, and we did their taxes. We started in late February because of the virus and ran all the way through to the end of tax season on May 15th, and did over 500 taxes for people.
What does VITA mean?
That's a IRS designation. It's voluntary income tax advisory, which is just what that's the IRS label that's on that program. So everybody that worked for me was a volunteer. Everybody was IRS certified because you have to go through an exam every year, and the exam is not an easy one. And with certain restrictions, there are some cases that we actually can't do. But in general, for what most people need, we can do their taxes, and it's a matter, we electronically file, so, they're not having to mail it in or anything unless they want to. And that's their call.
Mm-hmm. Now, exactly how did you get started with all this work?
Well, about 4 years ago, I volunteered.
You were in the Army, right?
Yeah.
You've been learning ever to volunteer?
Well, they always said, in Special Forces, you're a 3-time volunteer because you had to be a volunteer to be on jump status. So I did that. You had to volunteer to go to Special Forces school. So I did that. And you had to volunteer for the assignments. So I did that. So I guess after a while,
you get used to it.
You get used to it. But I started off with taxes with AARP and did taxes for them for 3 years as I learned how to do them. And it's an ongoing education because of again, it's another bureaucracy and it's complicated. And it befuddles a lot of people.
Yeah, well, life is complicated in a lot of ways, But, I referred a guy, in fact, we were talking about this guy a few months ago, that he had a motorcycle accident, and they put him in, of course, you got to go to rehab, and you can only be in rehab like 30 days or something like that, and then his wife called up the AMVETS, and she was like, what am I going to do with him? Blah, blah, blah. He's a veteran and this and that. And I said, well, try the VA. And then you have 2-on-1, the United Way call. There's help out there.
Definitely. And the VA is actually incredible. Once you're in the system and you have a need and a requirement, the resources are really off the charts. And, they really, really do a good job. There's a big problem with veterans who don't ever access the VA system because they don't understand it.
I'm going to tell you something. I worked for the power company for about 31 years, and I wanted to get into the VA system. And a guy came to the plant, the building where I was working, to talk about getting into the VA. And he says to me, you make too much money. There's a platform. So I says, well, I guess I don't get into the VA. Then I came down here and I see all these people go into Home Depot and Lowe's and getting a 10% discount. And I says, you know what? I do have a medical program from where I retired. But what happens, a lot of companies nowadays are getting out of that, And I said, what happens if I'd have to kind of go to the VA or maybe. You know what? I called a friend of mine, Jack Johnson, who was with the VA, and he says, "Come on down, bring your paperwork, bring me what you made, this and that, and your DD 214." So I went down there. I'm thinking I'm going to have to go through all this rigmarole, and first thing the woman says, "Let me see your DD 214." So I handed it to her. He says, "You're a Vietnam vet." I says, "Yeah." "Well, you're automatically in." I said, "I didn't know that. All these years I never knew that, and I think a lot of people don't know it."
You're absolutely right.
And so I think what you do is a great job at helping people out and try to understand things. Now you go on if the website, you have a website, you have one for your part of it or
Yes.
what?
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
want to tell us what it is?
Oh, it's the uwls.org is the website for United Way, and then Mission United is within the United Way website. But to go back to what you just said, you're absolutely right. The estimate is 50% of veterans never access the VA system because they don't understand it.
They don't understand it, or a lot of them go, "You know what, I don't really need it. Let my brother or sister, who are really need it more so than me." But like I said, with me, it was I have medical through my company.
Sure.
But then I started worrying about, because I hear like some of the big automobile industries, they started taking away the medical benefits.
Sure.
And then you go, now what do I do, right? So
Well, I would ask the question, even in your case, do you get free hearing aids through your medical?
Huh?
Do you get free hearing aids?
Huh?
Do you get glasses?
No.
VA will provide those.
Yeah.
So, you can have medical coverage through your corporation and still access the VA system. And you're right, there is a priority system of 1 through 8. But, and at priority 8, yes, there's a copay and there's this and that. But I'll tell you what, a VA copay for prescriptions, probably the lowest copay in the world. $5 for a 30-day supply. That's the copay. $13 for a non-generic, that's the copay. You can't beat it. And I mean, so anybody that thinks, the basic rule is prior to 1980, if you served 1 day on active duty, you're eligible for VA health care. After 1980, 2 years of continuous service, you're eligible for VA health care, period.
Oh, really?
At a 10% disability rating, which many veterans have because of hearing loss, you are a priority 3. So you've jumped from 8 to 3, now you're eligible for just about everything in the system.
You said if you served a day?
1 day.
That's all
Prior
it takes?
to 1980.
I would thought you would have, prior to 1980.
Yep.
Well, I was prior to 1980. I didn't know this.
A good example was my neighbor. We've lived next to each other for 21 years. We both live on acreage. And you talk to your neighbor over the fence every so often, and after a number of years, I found out he had been in the Navy, and I asked him if he was in the VA healthcare system. He said no. I said, "Jerry, how long were you on active duty?" 6 weeks. I got medically discharged. My back got all screwed up. I said, "Well, you need to go to Tavares, to the VA clinic, and get in the system." And he did.
Yeah, well, I hear a lot of people having problems. It takes too long to get in the system lately.
It takes 1 day.
Really?
It's not magical. There's nothing magical about it.
How about claims?
DD 214, that gets you into the system.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I guess I didn't understand where I was.
And compensation.
That's another ball game.
That's another ball game. It's a longer process. Service connection, it takes time. It's a process, and that's one that would take 5 minutes to explain. But the long and short of it is, just because you're getting health care does not mean you're getting disability compensation. You have to apply for each disability. Mm-hmm. And you do that through a veteran service officer. Lake County government, for example, has Veteran Services officers. You set up an appointment with them, they'll work with you, and they act as your power of attorney with the VA to submit your claim. And you can also do that at the Villages Clinic, you can do it at Lake Baldwin, or you can do it at Lake Nona. All of those sites have Veteran Services officers.
So does the American Legion post.
VFW, DAV,
Yeah.
everybody has VSOs. So there's no excuse for not being able to do this. Yeah, you're going to wait, time for these claims to be processed, but they will be processed.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And I try to tell the younger veterans and stuff to get involved and learn more about what are your rights and this and that, because a lot of them don't, and I speak up for the Legions and the VFWs and the AMVETs. They don't have one right like in Leesburg. We don't have one service officer there, but they do have one somewhere. But the VFWs and the American Legion, I think the American Legion down in Lady Lake has about 7 service officers. I'm not sure.
The American Legion in the Villages is the largest. Post in the
Lady
country.
Lake.
Right. No,
Don't
I'm just
say the
saying.
Villages. They're not in the Villages. You'll get some people very upset with that. But there's a lot of villagers who go there.
Right.
Yeah, but it is a huge post.
Yeah, it is.
They do a lot of good work, and like I said, I think they have like 7, maybe more. I don't know.
Even retired military get confused over this because they have TRICARE eligibility.
Oh yeah.
So they're out on TRICARE, and when you talk to them, they'll say, "Well, why should I go to the VA?" And the answer is, the benefits that are in the VA even exceed what TRICARE offers. So yeah, you can get a lot of medical coverage through TRICARE. I know. I mean, I'm eligible. I was eligible for TRICARE. I'm still on TRICARE for life, which is, one of your benefits. But I do all of my medical now through the VA. And one of the reasons for that is, when you're out on your own, even using like your corporate medical process, you're going to see this doctor, this specialist, this one. You're all over the map. And, it's an appointment here, an appointment there. At the VA, I got to deal with one agency and one set of people. And, if I need to go to a specialty clinic, I know I'm going to Lake Nona. I don't even have to ask, because that's where the VA hospital is.
I will say this for the VA. My father-in-law lived with us for a while, World War II. And the VA took fantastic care of him.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever he needed, we got. And a lot of people will knock it, but if you don't get involved, you don't really know what it's about.
Right.
And I think what you're doing is great. Helping people learn. And did you have any people working with you, or are you all by yourself?
No, I'm by myself. I'm a one-man.
So right now what I'm doing is getting a whole lot of phone calls for you.
Yeah. But I'd like to put a plug in. We just acquired it's a shuttle bus. It's the kind that you would get on at the airport that go from the terminal to the parking lot. Right now it's being wrapped with our Mission United logo and an American flag and all the rest of that. And that bus will be used because the Claremont Clinic does not have transportation for veterans to go to Lake Nona. And we're going to provide that bus with driver to take veterans from the Claremont Clinic to Lake Nona and back to appointments.
Yeah, doesn't the DAV still have that, or no?
They do it at Tavares and at the Villages.
They don't do it here in Leesburg, the DAV in Leesburg?
I don't know.
Probably not. I think they're kind of rather
there's
small.
no clinic here. I mean, the
No,
collection.
they have the DAV.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that's super. I used to have a good friend of mine. He was pastor for the homeless, and he would transport people back and forth up there all the time. And he was telling me stories. He says sometimes, I get a guy and pick him up out of the forest. We get him up there. Then he says, "Nope, I ain't getting out of the car." And then he turn around and come back. It's a lot of work, and I give you guys a lot of credit. Pastor Chris Ward, rest his soul, he was not the man for the forest, But so you did all this time in Special Forces, huh?
Yes.
That's amazing. I know some people around here that were in Special Forces. I'll introduce you to one later.
It's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah. Well, we get a lot of different people on the show. We had Pete Peterson, who was a Navy SEAL, on here. So, Special Forces, they're a tough breed.
Well, it was really interesting because I worked primarily in joint special operations. So I worked with all the service special operations forces, Rangers, SEALs, special boat units, the MC-130s, the MH-53s, out of the Air Force. So, I got to meet and learn a lot from a lot of agencies. And I think I worked with every alphabet soup agency as an acquisition program manager for US SOCOM that ever existed. DIA, CIA, NSA, AIA. And it's amazing.
Couldn't hold a job, could you?
Every time I think of it, they all have 3 letters. Where did that rule come from?
I have no idea. I salute you, sir, for your service. So once again, I think we're pretty much ready. I think we're running out of time. I just got the signal over there. And you want to give out that the phone numbers or websites or whatever? If they want to get a hold of you, and let us know.
My phone number is my office number is 352-787-7530, option 4, which is veterans. And my website, or my email address, is missionunited@uwls.org.
Now, you work primarily with Lake and Sumter, or
we work Lake and Sumter.
Lake and Sumter. And there are other chapters within United Way. So if people are watching this, that live in Seminole County or whatever.
Sure. There's Heart of Florida is United Way in Orlando, and they have a really robust Mission United operation also.
Okay. I think we wrapped it up here, didn't we?
Sure.
Okay, it's time to say goodbye, and follow my lead, all right?
All right.
All right, now you're not one of these guys that has to stand up to salute, do you?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't stand up anymore. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time, and thank you, United Way.
Since 2009, Project SOS has assisted our veterans both overseas and here at home to overcome medical issues, homelessness, and disabilities. Initially, our efforts resulted in over 22 clinics opened in Iraq and Afghanistan. Recently, as troops have been withdrawn, we have concentrated on issues here at home. During this past year, we have been able to distribute 42 motorized wheelchairs and numerous mobility devices to our local veterans who have served in World War II and up to and including Afghanistan. We continue to offer solutions to our local homeless veterans in the Ocala National Forest and other Central Florida locations. Project SOS Support Our Soldiers needs your assistance to continue helping a growing homeless veterans population. Over-the-counter medications and personal hygiene supplies are acutely needed. Your financial aid will greatly increase the support they so desperately need.